Hi, welcome to another edition of Soap from the Box, the podcast where I interview actor friends who've been in some of the biggest continuing dramas in the country. And there's no bigger than Coronation Street. And this week, they celebrate their 60th birthday. So break open the balloons, break open the booze, break open the birthday cake. I have got a very special edition coming in 3 days' time with a current cast member who's been in Coronation Street for over 30 years. But today, someone who's a loose woman, someone who is just about to star in Hollyoaks, and someone who rocked the nation when she appeared in Coronation Street, the amazing Denise Welch. Enjoy. Okay, so my guest on this week's podcast is here to start celebrations of the Coronation Street anniversary, 60 years, which is incredible. Her history is amazing as well. So many programmes, I can't even list them all. Soldier, Soldier, Holby City, Waterloo Road, Where the Heart Is, EastEnders, Biker Grove, Born and Bred. Denise Welch, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
It's an amazing backstory. We're obviously here, first of all, to talk about Natalie Horrocks in Coronation Street. You were there from February 1997 to December 2000, but in that 3 years, you basically cemented your place in history. I mean, I can't believe it was only 3 years you were in it.
7, 8, 9, 10, no, it was 4. So
4 years.
4 years, yeah.
And what was it like joining such an institution?
It was terrifying, and bearing in mind, I was in my late 30s when I joined, so I've been around a bit, but I was terrified. And I had been watching the show. You know, Coronation Street was in my DNA. You know, it was because I'd grown up with it. And even when you were little, it was just on all the time. You know, my mum was obsessed with it. So I was in awe. You know, when you get to a certain age and you've done quite a lot in this industry, you kind of think that you would get a bit more blasé about things. But I could have met Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and people like that, and I wouldn't have been as in awe as I was meeting Liz Dawn and Bill Carney and Eileen Derbyshire and Barbara Knox, you know. I mean, I was absolutely in awe, and I was also terrified of calling them by their character name.
I know. I mean, when I joined Soap, and I have to say, I normally start with a memorable moment, and unfortunately we haven't worked together, but my memorable moment really of you is I used to go with my nan and granddad's, and they're not here anymore, and actually they never got to see me direct Coronation Street, which I'm really sad about, but hopefully they're up there proud of me. But I just remember going over, and Sally and Kevin were my favourite characters, and then I remember Natalie Horrocks came in and kind of tore it apart.
I know. I mean, it was when I went for the audition, and there was a sequence of auditions, and I never thought that I'd get it because I'd always wanted to do Corrie. I would have been happy to do one episode. You know, it became a bit of a cult thing, if you remember. People really, you know, people like Derek Jacobi, Cliff Richard, Michael Crawford, all of these people wanted to come in and do one bit. So it's sort of, every actor kind of wanted to do a bit. So I'm over the moon to get the audition for this. But I knew that there was a lot of well-known people up for the role. And when I went in to see Brian Park and Judy Hayfield, the casting director, when they told me what the role was, I was sort of sworn to secrecy. You know, they said that this character's going to come up and she's going to break up the Websters. So, of course, no one in their right mind thought that contract would ever be beyond 3 months, which was the initial contract, because everyone, you know, you thought that the Websters would split up. Kevin would have a much regretted affair, and off Natalie would go, and she would be a name that would be bandied around in arguments for years to come.
Yes, yeah.
So I was more surprised than anyone when the contract became 6 months, then it became a year, you know. And, of course, it was also difficult because I was one of the only people then who didn't live in the Northwest. And so when they offered me a year's contract, I was incredibly homesick. You know, there's weekend filming and I couldn't always get home, and so we had to make the decision for them to come down to the Northwest. And ironically, that's where I'm talking to you from now.
How amazing, isn't it? Well, before we go on, I've got a little surprise for you talking about those characters we were talking about. I'm going to play it to you now if everything works.
Hi, Denise. It's Michael Lavelle here.
Hi, Denise.
We want you back in Coronation Street.
Yeah, we need Natalie Barnes back, but we've heard a rumour that you're going to
Hollyoaks.
And their gain is our loss.
What's that about, eh?
We love you, Denise, so much.
Love you. And give our love to Lee, won't you?
Bye.
There we go, the brilliant Michael and Sally.
Well, I mean, that's fantastic. Sally's one of my great friends. Michael I haven't seen for ages, so it's lovely to hear his voice. I mean, to be honest, you know, Corrie never asked me back, and I never asked to go back. You know, it was the thing is about going back to an established show like that is that when Beverly Callard left a couple of times before she went back, there was always a reason for her to go back because the kids lived there, or Charlie was there, Jim McDonald.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Whereas obviously Natalie sort of didn't really have any family there or any reason to go back type of thing. So it's something that I remember incredibly fondly. I'm still remembered for. The power of soap is incredible. Bearing in mind, when Natalie eventually married Denise Barnes, our wedding was watched by 22 million people.
I know, that's incredible, isn't it? I mean, I was looking through, actually, you're pretty much in the top 5 of episodes watched, which is, I mean, that's what a legacy, isn't it? That's amazing.
Well, it is. And I mean, you know, bearing in mind Natalie had gone in as a real sort of bitch. So obviously nobody thought that there could be a future for that character because she was a marriage wrecker and she wasn't very nice. And then, of course, they had to soften her a bit in order for her to stay in because she was the character that you loved to hate originally. And then people sort of started to relate to her a little bit. And that's how the longevity of the character came around. But I always remember the day when Natalie had been made the landlady, and it was a scene outside the Rovers, but we were then doing some still shots. So I'm outside the Rovers, and they've put the heading above the pub, Natalie Barnes, and I've got the keys. And I remember phoning from the street, phoning my mum and dad, going, I'm the fucking landlady. Not many moments in telly are that iconic when you're doing them. They often are to the viewer, but they aren't to you, the actress. But that was like, hang on a minute, we're talking about Bert Lynch. Talking about Annie Walker. How am I the landlady of the Rovers Return? It was a moment in time that I remember saying, I've got to ring my mum and dad from the street and let them know that because it was just so weird.
And I think that's the thing as an audience member, because you said, right, the list before you, Jack and Annie Walker, Bet Lynch, then Bet and Alec Gilroy, Jack and Vera Duckworth. That was the last couple before Natalie Barnes went up. And I think the audience forget, like, as an actor, that's, you know, it never leaves you that moment of when you're on something so iconic. The fact your name's above the Rovers Return. It was
the fact that going into the show was terrifying. You know, and even my mum obviously, and my late mum and my dad who's still thriving, and thank goodness. But, you know, my mum was a huge fan. But I remember once after a while she went to me, I mean, obviously I'm dead proud of you being in it and you're brilliant, but it sort of ruined it a bit for me when your daughter walks into the Rovers Return. It takes all the reality out of it.
Totally. I remember my mum coming when I directed Coronation Street, and she was sat in the gallery, and, you know, she couldn't believe I was talking. She kept telling me to go and say, you know, don't forget that character, you know, by the character name, don't forget, you don't be rude to that person, they've done that. And you're like, Mum, because often I think the audience, it's that because it's in their lounges every day, people confuse it slightly with reality, don't they? I
think they certainly did then, 24 years ago when I joined, because we didn't have the choice of programmes. There was 20 million people watching that show 4 times a week. And also there was no reality television. So that was people's reality television.
Totally, yeah.
It was unbelievable. But as I say, it was hard enough for me to cope with what happens when you go into that, because it's like you become so famous that everybody in the country knows who you are. So even somebody like me in my late 30s who had been in shows, as you mentioned, like Soldier and stuff like that.
Which were huge as well, weren't they? I mean, massive.
They were huge, but I was used to being recognised a bit. Nothing prepares you. So I would always be very sympathetic and try to be nurturing to the young kids who would come in, because it was changing their lives within their first episode of being on telly. I didn't feel there was enough pastoral care there for them, because it's very difficult to go through those life changes. It's a little bit different now because people have so many options of things to watch. So it's not quite so life-changing, but it was then.
And I still think it is. I remember when I joined Hollyoaks, actually, which we'll get to, but in the cast handbook, there was in the middle of a paragraph was, this will change your life. And I think, I mean, how do you feel? I think it's quite scary. You had all that experience behind you. I think for younger actors, it's like I always say to younger actors, really think carefully whether you do want that, because it's an instant thing that you can't ever get back in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I always remember when Brian Park, who was the producer who brought me in, has remained a friend of mine. And but we had it. You wouldn't mind me saying this. We had a tiff one day because Adam Rickitt had come into the show, and Adam was a young guy, green behind the ears, lovely looking boy, blah blah blah. And after about a month of him being on screen, we all were requested to go to some kind of do in Manchester together, And when we came out, the paps were surrounding Adam, and it was something he wasn't used to. He sort of, in a moment of stress, flipped the bird, and it was in the papers. And Brian came down on him like a ton of bricks. And I remember storming into Brian's office and going, "How dare you treat Adam like that? The poor guy was just a young lad from Cheshire a month ago, and now he's this sort of heartthrob of Coronation Street. He didn't know how to react." And, we've talked about that, Brian and I. We've laughed about it since. But, it was very important to me to look after these kids. And also, when you're that age and, you're going through changes and hormone changes and all of your friends who aren't in the business necessarily are going out and getting boyfriends. And suddenly you're at a stage where you don't know if people want to be with you because it's you or because you're famous. Yeah. I was old and ugly enough to deal with all of those things. But even then, it was still hard. I'll tell you what it was like. I took Matthew, who was then 9, to Wembley to see Michael Jackson. As I walked into Wembley Stadium, there was something like 50,000 people there. And this ripple of applause started.
Wow.
And I am looking around, and I realise, Lee, that they're clapping me. Now, when you think that 21 million people watched that, I was looking at these 50,000 thinking, I can't imagine any more people than this.
I mean, that's incredible. Michael Jackson's probably behind stage thinking, what's going on?
Who on earth is that?
Who on earth's out there? We should have got her for support. But how do you think things have changed with social media as well? Because in a way you think, is it harder for younger actors now? Because
I am very, very glad that my years are in advance as regards social media, because when I was there, we had these pigeonholes and all of your mail went into the pigeonholes. So if you didn't want to read them, you knew that they would be fan requests. I used to read them, sent a lot up to my dad, who used to do all my fan mail, bless him.
Yeah.
At least everybody got a personal response. I used to go to Tracy's show. I used to go, "Tracy, look, your pigeonhole's full and you haven't wrote
overflowing." I remember
any of those.
I remember being at all the shows. You saw so many people's pigeonholes; they were just boiling over because they never looked at the mail.
But I do remember getting a few letters, and they were horrible. I mean,
really
vicious. Oh God, yeah. There was one man who used to say that he had a campaign on News at 10 or something to get me off the telly. I mean, completely deluded, obviously, but you've got the most horrible eyes and the most horrible mouth and but you can imagine that.
Oh, but the millionfold on social. Yeah.
I was looking at this lovely girl that's on Strictly, this girl, Maisie, who's on Strictly, and apparently the trolling is vitriolic because she appears too confident.
Too confident, I know.
How dare you? She's a young girl. Just because she's not shy and retiring, that's maybe her defence mechanism. She'll be absolutely pulling herself on that show, because I know what it's like to do that type of show.
And what's right, we're in a world where supposedly we're supposed to be fighting for females to be confident. Do you know what I mean? So it's crazy that I know it is. I mean, I worked with Maisie as a little girl in EastEnders, so it's amazing to see her come so far. And she's a lovely girl, her family are lovely, and it's really heartbreaking when you see that.
It really is. It's absolutely disgraceful.
What I found with this podcast, which is lovely, is actually all the soap fans out there, most of them are really dedicated and lovely. I mean, this has been getting so much support, which is lovely.
And the other thing as well is, because we do have a lot of reality shows now, going back to what we were talking about when we didn't. Now, a lot of people think that being famous is a job. And when you say to a young person, what do you want to do? And they say, well, I want to be famous.
I want to be famous,
oh, that's good. Well, that's good. What do you want to be famous for? And they look at you and think
Because you know what, Denise, when Barbara Windsor left EastEnders, who I've loved to bits, Barbara Windsor, and I said to her when she left, you know what is going to be really missed here is you being here, because everyone, it's the same with Barbara Knox, I think, everyone knows their lines, no one's late, because these people demand respect, and that's because they've worked the boards, they've come from nothing, they're not there because they wanted to be famous.
That's it. There's a lot of people who haven't done their apprenticeship, so sometimes when you hear that certain famous people have said, do you know who I am, and they turn up with an entourage, it's like, oh my God, you've just been in Big Brother for 3 weeks.
I know.
I mean, I had two nervous breakdowns that I was in Corrie. Looking back, did I wish that I'd come out of it for a bit? Yes, I do. But I think it was just because we were brought up that the show must go on, and now
The show must go on, yeah.
People lose an eyelash, they're off.
I know. And I mean, I've always grown up thinking this, and so many people have said this on this show, that, you know, you should never feel differently than this. You should always surround yourself with people that are better than you in the room. And I think on Corrie, I mean, when you joined, what I love about Corrie is its female icons, and it still has that. I mean, did you have certain people you were just in awe of and that you learnt from on the job?
I was in awe of Barbara Knox. And very early on in my time there, way before I was anything to do with the pub, Natalie's house was on location in Chorlton. So on a Sunday, we would go off to do the filming on location. Yeah. And I remember looking at my script and seeing that I had this scene with Barbara Knox, and they put us in this car together to go. And I remember I could hardly breathe.
Yes.
And anyway, we sort of chatted, and Barbara's quite regal, you know, Jane Barbara, we call her, and she's quite sort of regal. Anyway, we got to the location. We did this scene, which was a cracking scene where I had to call her a cow or something. And I was thinking, oh my God, I've got to call, Barbara Knox.
Dame Barbara and cow, yeah.
Dame Barbara. Anyway, we got back in the car at the end of filming, and Barbara Knox just turned to me and she said, I just want to say that it was a pleasure to do that scene. I've admired you as an actress for so long, and I am so thrilled that you have joined this show. And I remember phoning home going,
that was another one. That was another one to the mum and dad.
Another one.
Well, I remember when I met Barbara, and I almost curtsied. Because you do feel like you're in the presence of like someone.
I can't drop any names, but there was a certain person that came into the show for a short time that Barbara didn't approve of for many reasons. And it was when we had the big green room that you'll remember.
Yeah.
And if this person was sat in the green room, Barbara would come in one end, and all you would hear was, she would just touch and walk through in her turban and out of the other door. Oh my God. There were people like Bill Tarmy. I'll tell you who was probably one of my favourites. Before I went in and when I went in, which was Roy Barraclough, Alec Gilroy.
Oh, I never worked with him. What show? I loved it. Was he brilliant?
He kept me going behind that bar, because what a lot of people don't realise is that when you are the landlady or indeed the barmaid of a fictitious pub, the media make you out to be a pivotal character, which is brilliant. But in reality, you can have weeks on end with no
saying a pint. Yeah. What would you like? A pint?
And basically, I ran out of ways to empty an ashtray in the back of shot, you know. And so Roy Barraclough used to invent sort of the subplots, you know, for him and I. And it was hysterical. Also, we had this little rubbish prop that someone had clearly brought back from the souvenir stand in Spain, and me and Alec used to have to place it in as many sets as possible and see if it was noticed by anybody, just to keep us going, really, because they are long days, you know.
Oh, it's brilliant you bring that up. Actually, we've not talked about it because the audience watching wouldn't know this, but yeah, you're right. I mean, we as directors, you would go, oh no, we've got a pub date, because A, you've got loads of people in it. B, it's quite hard to stage because they are quite small sets still, really.
Yeah, they are. They're very small.
And for actors, I always think it's two sides of the coin, isn't it? Because you know you're going to get paid okay because you're in lots.
Well, that's exactly what it was. I would look at the chart every week, and I would see that I was always in 4 episodes, which obviously became 5. But initially, I was in all 4 episodes, so I knew that I was going to, you know, I was always going to be there. And then when they made me the landlady, the thing is, like you said, the directors would just, if for continuity, would want you in the back of shot all the time.
All the time, yes.
Oh, God, I was always inventing female conditions that I had that would hopefully embarrass the male directors so I could get out of the scene.
And also, as a landlady, you're always going to be in high heels as well. So it's that thing of what I love. If only people saw the filming, like in Emmerdale. I just remember all of the girls all wearing kind of quite sexy outfits behind the bar, and then they've got like a big pair of fluffy slippers on underneath, back behind the bar.
Absolutely. But, you know, I have very, very fond memories of it. And also, I was there for the first live. When I say the first live, obviously they used to film it live. God knows how they did that back in the black and white days.
I know,
I was one of the first. I did the 40th anniversary, which was the first live that we did as a more contemporary cast. And I was pregnant in real life dear God, I thought I was going to have the baby
Wow.
with nerves.
Is that the one where they were because they're kind of replicating kind of the same story? Were they trying to save the Cobbles in that one? Is that the one?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I remember that Bill Roach, who was he was probably mid-60s then, and he had the lion's share of it. And it's terrifying. I mean, I work as a presenter as well.
And you've done theatre, so you're used to live, but that must be something totally different.
When you are doing theatre, there are ways and pauses and moments that you can do to cover if you drive. And if you are presenting like I present, live stuff, I much prefer doing Loose Women live than if we ever in the day had to pre-record it. Because with a live show, you can go, oh, sorry, Andrea's just dropped her what's going on here?
Yeah.
You can't do that in a drama. You can't do it in a drama, And
also, you kind of put your career on the line, I think, because if you were to really mess up, you've got the whole world watching, and they'll be going, God, we're not going to give her a theatre job.
25 million people were watching.
God.
I hadn't said anything by the first end of part one. And I remember going into the green room at the end of part one, and David Liddman, big cheese at ITV, said to us, well done, everybody, 25 million. Honestly,
oh, my God, the worst thing to say.
The worst thing to say. I mean, you can't comprehend that number of people. It's a third of the country.
No, you can't. I was there for the last Corrie Live. I didn't direct it, but I mean, it was an incredible atmosphere. But I mean, you really felt for everyone. Now, before we move on to other things, Denise, I've got one more message for you. Hopefully, you'll hear this. And this is another one from Sally. But here we go.
Hi, Denise. I just want to send you this message to tell you how much I love you. I mean, I've known you for 20 odd years now, and I just adore you. And I think that was my happiest time on Corrie, was when you were in the show and we were together. But you're a true, loyal, gorgeous friend, and I love you so much. You're such a special person, and I'm so, so proud of you, everything you do, and I love you with all my heart.
There we go. That's Sally.
Oh my God, that's really nearly made me choke up a little bit. Oh my God, I love Sally. I love Sally so much.
She's one of the nicest people I've ever met. She's gorgeous. And I was dreading meeting her because I thought, oh God, is she going to be a diva? I always think that, when someone's...
She came in because when I started, Sally was off on maternity leave. So I started the storyline. And then, of course, Sally, who had, on her own admission, for quite some time, her storyline had been, go upstairs, girls, wash your hands, do you want peas?
Yes. Yeah.
And then, of course, Natalie comes in, and suddenly Sally, who was just literally... had come back from having a baby and is thrust into this huge storyline which hits all the front pages of the newspapers. And she was amazing. Do you know something? Do you know what really gets me, Lee? I think it's wonderful that we have the soap awards and all of those things. But when you have like a general awards ceremony and you have best actress, best actor, and then you have best soap actress, best soap actor, in a way, it annoys me. Because
totally.
It should just be best actor. Because if you can pull a performance out with the lack of rehearsal and the time limitations that you do on a soap opera, you deserve an award above anybody else.
I totally agree.
I get very angry when people sort of do, this person's only
just
only
a soap actor. Sometimes nowadays you could be doing 15 episodes at a time. You'll be doing scene 1 from that episode, then scene 20 from episode 15.
It's like making 2 movies in a week, 2 full
every 2 weeks.
movies in It doesn't matter what show you're in. It's how good you are, and there is some incredible talent in all of the soaps, obviously. Sally Dynevor is lovely.
And I love the fact that in real life you're best friends. She's coming up on the podcast on the anniversary of Corrie, and she said one of her favourite scenes ever was, I think she had to come round and wreck your flat, and she said she just loved it.
Oh, and she had to write whore on my mirror.
Again, I think she loved it because from that moment on, Sally, the character changed.
She told me that the advent of Natalie completely changed the trajectory of Sally, because Sally just thought that she would be stuck with Kevin, forever. And, of course, suddenly Sally got all these men and, and she just it revolutionised her. It changed her completely, So that's my legacy, that I gave another life to Sally Dynevor.
Well, moving off Corrie, all I can say is you've left your own legacy there, which is incredible. I think people still absolutely love you for everything you've done, but for that... And let's just talk about the other soaps you've done, because I actually forgot you did this until I researched you, that you were, of course, in EastEnders as well. So you were the secret stepmom of Stacey, weren't you? Stacey Slater.
Yeah, I was the mum of Riley Carter, who was the trans character
Yes.
in it. And I didn't even know. I knew I was called Alison. This all happened very, very last minute. And one of my friends, who you'll know, Darren Little.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Darren, who
Brilliant writer.
So Darren said, look, I've written this role in Eastenders, and I really want you to, it's one episode, but I really want you to play it. But I think they're looking at somebody else. And I went, oh, well, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. Anyway, long story short, it all sort of happened on the Wednesday, and I had to shoot it the next week. And I went out and dyed my hair because they wanted my hair to look different. And I thought, this is all so quick. If I don't, they'll give me a really shit wig, so I'm going to go and dye my hair.
Yeah.
So I went and dyed my hair, and suddenly, and I knew I was called Alison. But then when I saw all the publicity for it, I was Alison Slater. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, I'm one of the Slaters.
One of the Slater women.
Yeah. And I went in and I did it over a couple of days, and everybody was lovely. And then I remember the night it aired, I was in the theatre watching something in Manchester, and I came out in the bar after and looked at my phone, and it blowed up.
Crazy, I bet. I bet.
God, I'd been for years, whatever I'd done, it was always Coronation Street actress Denise Welch. I did one episode, and it was Eastenders actress.
Eastenders actress. Yeah. And you only did one episode, and actually working. But and again, you got part of the family. And Lacey is another actress I think is incredibly talented and amazing. You also did Biker Grove for 2 years. Now, was that the years of Ant Dec, or was that the after?
Yeah.
Oh, it was
Ant Dec years.
So do you remember thinking, I mean, they are, I think, the best presenters, two of the, they're like an old style variety act. They're so incredible. I mean, did you see signs of that when you worked with them?
No. I mean, I was in my 20s. Yeah, what was I? I mean, I was probably about 30, and they were probably about 12. And I was filming Spender and Biker Grove at the same time.
Wow.
And you go years without telly, because I was mainly a theatre actress, years without telly, and then two come along like buses, same with my equity card. But yeah, so I was working, so it was the days of Ant Dec and the days of Jill Halfpenny, Donna Eyre,
yes.
they were all in it. And of course, they were just, cute little snotty-nosed kids. And Ant Dec, years later, came on my This Is Your Life, and they said the reason why we had to continue in show business is because we failed all our exams, because Denise used to teach us our maths when the chaperones were bitching and the tutors. And they used to say to me, Denise, would you just sit and do the maths with these kids? And I can't do maths, so they blamed me for failing.
That's brilliant. Well, but in a way, thanking you then for the career they've got.
Thank you.
They might
You're
be accountants.
welcome.
Exactly.
You're welcome, exactly.
It's all down to you, Denise. And then moving to Hollyoaks, you've actually appeared in Hollyoaks in the City before, haven't you? So it's not your first time in that arena.
That was a Darren Little thing as well.
Oh, brilliant.
He's one of my best friends. He knew I was obsessed with crime, and that I'd always wanted to play a detective, and no one ever saw me as that. So he had this Hollyoaks in the City, which was a bit late night Hollyoaks.
A bit raunchier.
Yeah, it was raunchier, but it was the fact that I could walk in with a badge and go, "Hello, Detective Inspector Willis," or whatever I was called. And it was and Lee Warburton, who actually played my son in Corrie.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Lee played the owner of this sort of model agency that I had to go and have something to do with. I don't remember. Lee is now one of the most successful writers in this country. He's writing stuff for Red Productions and
is he? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's all a big soapy world. So that was 2 episodes, I think, 100 years ago.
And now you're back playing Trish Miniver, who is, another link. It all goes around in circles. You're playing the mum of Nikki Sanderson, who also was another Corrie person. It just shows, thank God you're nice, because you have to, I've always thought from the very beginning of this industry, you have to be nice, because you're going to meet everyone about 100 times before you leave this industry,
What goes around comes around in this world. Yeah, and the great thing about playing Nikki's mom is that she depressingly reminded me that she was 14 when I met her, and she's nearly 37.
Wow.
So she's the same age now as I was when I went into
Corrie. Wow, that's amazing.
Because we've known each other so long, we have kind of developed a shorthand as regards performance. So our mother-daughter relationship has evolved. I've only been filming for about a week, and it was just so natural to be her mum.
Do you find as an actor, actually, like you said, you've got the shorthand there with Nikki. Is it quite hard sometimes to establish, because sometimes you go in as someone's wife, or you're going in as a lover, or you're going in as, is it hard to get that? Have you learnt tips along the way to get that shorthand quite quickly?
It's much easier if you are kind of the same sort of person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There is something about filming in the north and being surrounded by northerners and with your kin. Do you know what I mean? I've got a great guy who I can't name at the moment because they haven't announced him yet.
Oh, yeah, your hunky lover.
My young hunky lover.
I'm so excited to know who it is.
When I saw the pictures of him, I thought, oh, my God, he's so good looking. Oh, my God, he's so young. Oh, my God, oh, my God. I said, he's only going to have accepted this part because we're doing COVID filming and he knows he won't have to kiss me.
Oh, that's so silly.
But what it is he's I just thought, oh, God, what if he's arrogant? What if he's this? What if he's that? He's the loveliest guy. He's absolutely spot on. And he was nervous and I was nervous. And so, but we've lapsed into these characters within a week. And
that's
also
amazing.
there's one thing I did was when they offered me this role, it was a big consideration. It's a year. I know how hard soap opera filming is. I know what the schedule's like. I know how more difficult it is with COVID. I know that I'm going to get home on a Tuesday thinking I'm off the next day, and I'm going to get a call saying you're not off the next day. I know all of those things. So I had to weigh all of that up with wanting to be a home, being much more of a homebody. So I phoned Joe McGann, Kelly Bryan, an old writer, Di Burrows, and Nikki. And I said, and listen, a friend of mine has been offered a year's contract at Hollyoaks. Because I knew that if they had anything awful to say, they would say, oh, tell her to run.
Oh, tell her not to, yes.
Yeah. But,
well, that's clever, that's clever.
One of the main things that they all said was, listen, sometimes the script will be late. Yes, they'll call you and you're not in, and then you think you're in and you're not, and vice versa. They said, but it is one of the happiest places to work. And I mean, Nikki's been there for 8 years now. And I've never had such a welcome at any job that I've been to than I have had for all the departments at Hollyoaks.
Oh, that's brilliant.
They made it feel very special.
Again, it sounds so sounds so rubbish, but it's not. Every soap I've been to is one big family, and it is amazing because you have to be working that hard, but actually there is a few, of course, there's a few rough diamonds that come in that I think are quite quickly got rid of.
I think in Corrie it was difficult because these people were so iconic that even the older ones, we'd grown up with them. But these, I think that Brian Kirkwood, the producer, has really made it a mission to get people's real life characters right so that they blend as well. Do you know what I mean? And that's totally how I think he's created such a. And I mean, even the girls in the office, because I keep saying to them, "Hi, girls, listen. I know you told me to download, this app and that app to get the schedule and everything, but I'm really old. So can you just tell me on the phone? Can you do it the old way? Can you do it the old way? And then you've got to be on a special email." And I'm going, "Can you just send it to my email?" It's just pathetic.
And you've kind of come full circle as well, because I read you got your equity card when you were teaching dance, and you now are playing. Trish does dance, doesn't she? And actually, you're having to go to
I've never made that connection. What you've just said there, that's hilarious. So I left drama school and I didn't have a job for 9 months because back in those days it was catch-22. You couldn't work unless you had a card. You couldn't get a card unless you had to get a card.
Yeah.
You had to do your apprenticeship, and I wish those days were back, to be honest. But never mind, they're gone. But so I was out of work for 9 months. I was waitressing. I was working in rank Xerox, stuffing envelopes. I was doing all of those type of jobs. And then I got offered 2 equity cards within 5 minutes of each other.
Wow.
And one was at Newcastle at Live Theatre Company, which since has become a great, a theatre that is one of my favourites in the country. But I had a boyfriend who became my first husband years ago in London. So as a young 21-year-old, I wanted to be in London. So I took an equity card with Watford Palace Theatre. And one of their tales was doing this thing called the Four Spirits or something, but it also meant that you had to help with these 5-year-old dancers on a Saturday. Well, I mean, I can move a bit, but I'm not a dancer. But anyway, that's how I got my equity card. So when I then find out that I'm a dancer, not one person asked me, when they
Can you
actually
dance?
No, I could have been that Anne Whitcomb for all they knew.
Yes. I remember we had Amanda Donohoe in Emmerdale and they wrote her beginning scenes. Big, huge scenes of her galloping across a field on a horse. And no one had bothered to ask her until the day of filming, could she ride a horse? She was petrified of them. So they had to change the whole script. And what's it like now, Denise, being obviously an older woman in the industry? Do you find that better parts are hard to come across? Do you know what I mean? Is there? I mean, I know a lot. I'm really good friends with Glynis Barber and stuff, and I know it's a challenge as you get older to find those really good parts.
It is a challenge, and yes, I do. I've always considered. I love Glynis. I haven't seen her for ages. I always considered myself to be a character actress. So when I was young, my idols were like Irene Handel and Pat Coombs and Joan Sims.
Yeah.
You know, and all of those type of actors. So I never considered myself the leading lady. It was always that I was the character actress. So I was always the one that I didn't care about playing the lead, the title role. I wanted to be the character that came on in Act 3 and stole the show.
Yes,
So I've kind of always thought, hopefully my roles will get better as I get older, and they have. But I'm also very lucky that I did diversify into presenting as well. So, you know, at the moment, I'm at 62.
Which I can't believe, by the way. When I read that, I thought Wikipedia had got it wrong. And I'm not just saying that. You look incredible.
Oh, Lee, thank you. Well, I look after myself a lot more now. I've been sober for, nearly 9 years now and stuff. And that makes a big difference mentally and physically. Yeah. But I'm busier at the moment, in this rubbish year we're having than ever. I mean, I'm doing Hollyoaks. I'm doing another non-scripted thing, which I will let you know when I can say that. And I'm also doing Loose Women. So when I can, they're very kind enough at Hollyoaks to let us do these things. So I'm busier than ever, which is great. So, it's good to say that because it's testament that, it is an ageist society, especially against women. And I'm out there and I'm doing it in lots of different genres at 62. So, and I'm very proud of that.
And you should be. And actually, you bring that up, and I don't want to dwell on it because you've talked a lot about it, but I think we have to mention it, mental health, because you've been an advocate for it. But which is quite bizarre that you say, actually, you're busier than ever, but you've had a brilliant career, and it just shows that anyone can have a brilliant career, but you can still suffer from mental health, and we all know people who have.
I suffer from clinical depression, from major depressive disorder, which I have done since Matthew was born in 1989. And I am testament to the fact that if you do not let this illness define you, you can work with it. I've had several breakdowns over the years. I've been very open about them. The last one I had was we call them episodes now, but that's what we used to call a nervous breakdown, was last September when I impulsively chronicled an episode of depression in real time over a 3-day period. I didn't think it through. I just did it to show people what this was like for someone that they considered to be. It's very easy when you see people go, "Hi, I'm Denise Welch, I'm on Loose Women. Look at me smiling and laughing and getting me boots out." But actually, and then to talk about being poorly, but to actually see it resonated with people so much. When I was well after a few days again, I had no idea this had gone viral. And it spawned the book that I wrote, The Unwelcome Visitor, because that's how I refer to my depression, is as an unwelcome visitor. And what I say is, I cannot stop the unwelcome visitor coming. I can do certain things which help keep him at bay a little bit. But my depression is endogenous often, so it's not reactive. So it's organic. It just happens. I wake up and it's there, or I go to sleep and in the night. It has its own life. But when it does, I have to just accept that it will be there. The unwelcome visitor will be there. I have to ride it out, and it's no less painful than it was 31 years ago. It's a crippling, isolating, debilitating illness that we have to prove we have. Nobody would say the things that they do to us that they would to someone lying in bed with cancer.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Nobody would go up to them and say, "Well, I know you've got that, but you look fine to me. Get your trainers on, go out for a bloody good walk."
I know, it's unbelievable. But thanks to people like you brought it to the limelight. And I think to see someone like you, because what would your advice? I mean, we know there's so many people at home suffering. And one of the reasons I did this podcast was to try to give people something to smile about. To kind of it was to stop me going mad in lockdown as well, because, you know, in lockdown you're surrounded by yourself. And
when I did the book, and I was talking a lot about this at the beginning of, in June when it came out. Obviously, I didn't write this book knowing that we were going to go into one of the most difficult years in living memory. And so obviously many, many more people have discovered that they are out of control of their mental health. It doesn't mean they've got clinical depression, but they have certainly been out of control of their mental health. There is an increase in anxiety. There is a huge increase in attempted suicide. And of course, the mental health services are on their knees, which they were before coronavirus, let alone now.
Yeah.
All I would say is there is always somebody that will listen to you. Right? There is always some article, even about me, that you can show to somebody in your family who maybe doesn't understand. Back in the day when I had it first, and then if I didn't have my family, I don't know what I would have done. There was nowhere to go. Now, while you are waiting to access mental health services, you've got Google. You can Google, you know, depression awareness places in Nottingham, you know, depression groups in Grimsby. And you will find somebody on the end of a phone, on a helpline, who will help you and be there for you. But believe you me, you may feel that you don't want to talk about it to people. But as soon as you do, that person will go, oh, my God, my brother has that. Oh, my God, my sister has that. Oh, my God, I have that. You should never feel alone, ever.
And I think your book has helped that, because I think, like I say, I think it means so much, whatever illness or whatever. I think that people in the public eye, when people can be as honest as you, it really resonates with people, because people do think, oh, my God, that can happen to her. You know, of course, it's fine that it's happening to me.
I don't see why we should be any more embarrassed about talking about a mental illness, which is a chemical imbalance in the brain that we have no power over.
No control over,
no control, that we should over getting something else. So I made a decision early on to think, hey, if this can happen to me, if it can happen to anybody. And, you know, people would say, oh, you might not work again. And I'd go, well, do you know something? If the employer was somebody that wouldn't employ somebody who had never left, you know, who was always there for work, who was a very good actress, if they don't want to employ me, they're not the kind of people I want to work for anyway.
Exactly. And we will put, anyone listening, we'll put loads of contacts on the episode description if you want to go. But no, I would say on behalf of everyone who has suffered or think they might be suffering, thank you, because it's amazing that people like you come forward and do that. So I think all credit to you. And to bring it round, I mean, to end off, Denise, I also love the fact you released a double A-side single when you were in Soldier as well.
Oh, God, of course.
You hit the charts. I think you reached number 23, which isn't bloody bad, to be honest.
I was straight in at 23 and straight out the following week. But you know something? Yeah. But you know something? What happened was that when I did that song, and it was obviously off the back of Robson and Jerome's success.
I mean, theirs went crazy, didn't it? They were at number one for about 40 weeks.
Ridiculous. So I said to the producers of Soldier, look, I'm sick of just making tuna sandwiches and everything. Can I have something more interesting to do? So in series 5, they had Marsha become a club singer with a drink problem. I don't know why. But anyway, and so I had to sing this show at a talent competition. You Don't Have to Say You Love Me. And they were only ever going to show a tiny clip of it, but they didn't. They showed the whole thing. But because this episode of Soldier aired in November, they obviously had to release the song in November. And the record company said to me that when you get released pre-Christmas, you are released against all the novelty records and all the, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, the hugest records as well.
You and I know that if it had been released earlier in the year, it would have
been number one for weeks.
Of course I would.
Of course. I mean, people out there probably now wouldn't even realise what a double A-side single is. I mean, that's gobbledygook to most people listening.
You
probably.
Don't Have to See Me, You Say You Love Me, and Cry Me a River.
Oh, God. I mean, we should bring it back. And we can't go without mentioning Loose Women, of course, that you've been on since 2000 and was it? It's years and years, isn't it? You left for a while.
18 years.
I can't believe it's been on for that long.
18 years. But I left. It's been on 20 years. We celebrated our 20th anniversary.
Which is incredible.
It's been on 20 years, but I left, and then I had a hiatus for about 6 years, and then I've been back about two and a half.
And can people rest assured you're still continuing with that? You're going to still be on Loose Women for our foreseeable future.
Absolutely. Hollyoaks, you know, are being absolutely brilliant. And I am still very much going to be maybe a few less episodes leading up to Christmas because I'm doing this other thing at the minute. But I'm definitely part of the team for as long as they'll have me.
Well, my mum will never forgive me if I don't say she loves it so much more when you're on. She told me to tell you. So I have
What's her name, your mum?
My mum's Carol.
Hi, Carol. Lots of love. You've got
She
a
will
lovely
love-
boy in Lee.
Oh, thank you, Denise. Well, listen, I feel like I know you. I mean, because we know all the same people, so we're bound to meet up soon. But it's been incredible to have you on to celebrate Corrie's 60th, also to celebrate you, because I think you're amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee.
And take care, and we'll get you to Christmas #1 next year.
Yes, please, the rap version. Okay.
Thanks, Denise. Thanks so much to the ever-busy Denise Welch for sparing the time to have a chinwag with me for an hour. Coming up this Wednesday, a very special bonus edition of the podcast to celebrate Coronation Street 60th. It's their actual birthday on Wednesday. And I've got someone with me who's been in the show for over 30 years. My favourite character in the show ever, actually. So, thanks to David Stevens and the Bothy for their edit and technical wizardry. Have a good few days, and I will see you on Wednesday.